meeting scheduled for October 18th, 2012. Can you please read the notice into the record, please?
Public meeting notice, okay.
Yeah.
Adequate notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act by mailing a schedule of the Township Committee to the Express Times and North Star Ledger newspaper, posting a copy of the Township Bulletin Board, and filing a copy of the Township Record.
Can you please join me in a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's look at the light. Roll call, please.
Perez?
Here.
Siegel? Here. Miliani? Here. Corey?
Here.
Torriello?
Here.
Here.
At this time, I'd like to have a motion to open the meeting up for public comment.
Make a motion?
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone wishing to make public comment, please come up and state your name.
Joe Maxey, 602 South Main Street, also fire chief. Fire department business. Last month, the question was brought up about there's potential of some foreclosed properties become the town's property and to possibly burn them down. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to reply in email, or so I'm here in person to do so. I've checked with our regional representative Division of Fire Safety. The DEP is not allowing any such burning of those types of property to help demo them or so forth and so on. And I just asked a little further, what were the parameters before? This has been a 2.5 year moratorium that they haven't allowed this. Even at that point, 3.5 months or 6 months of waiting for permits, and the said facility would have to be stripped of all recyclable materials. Half of the demolition.
Yeah, right. Well, you know what though, thanks for checking into it anyway.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it,
Yep.
Jeff.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doris Rayner, 520 North Main Street. I'm here to correct comments made at the last Township Committee meeting concerning the intersection of North Main and Rayner Way Streets. For the past several months, vehicles have been parked at the yellow curb in front of the old school. At times, a vehicle has been parked with the back extended over Rayner Way Street. We are not the only family this safety problem affects. Several homes on South Main have a garage at the rear of their homes with access to Rayner Way Street at the old school parking lot. I've had nothing to do with extending the yellow curb either north or south of this intersection. My request is that the curb be repainted and no parking law enforced. The only expense would be purchasing a pint of yellow paint, a brush, and the labor, perhaps 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make public comment? Seeing no hands, is there a motion to close the public comment hearing?
Make the motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Now, can I have a motion to approve the monthly minutes for August 16th, 2012? First, was there any comment on the minutes? Any corrections? Motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Miliani? Yes. Valari?
Yes.
Torriello?
Yes. And now a motion to approve.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, 1 second, Joe. Tom has just sent me a text saying he can only hear you. All the others are breaking up, and he can't hear public comment. So is there a way that you guys can just maybe speak a little louder?
Oh, we'll
Is there any
try.
way you can turn the volume up on the sound system?
the mic's
It would be, is the sound system all like, I mean,
Yeah, it's on.
yeah, we're
It's
on
on.
with that, and is the speaker all the way up on the phone? I can,
No, the phone is cutting out a little bit, so.
Okay,
there's nothing we can do.
yeah, it's happening. Okay, you know.
I mean, I don't know if I can try calling on a cell phone, but that's probably not gonna be any better, right, than a landline.
No.
So,
But no, don't worry about it. There's just a pause, or you're looking for a response from me, you don't hear something because it's breaking out.
yeah, there's definitely a delay, because we heard it on the Pledge of Allegiance. You were a little slow, and I'm sure you know the Pledge of Allegiance, Tom. So I'm assuming it was a delay and not you were scrambling to figure out the words.
And I thought, Tom, it was done on purpose so we could hear you.
So all right, we'll all try and speak up, okay?
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the monthly reports from court and police?
Make the motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Miliani?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Torriello?
Yes. And now, a motion to approve the payment of bills and claims as amended dated October 18th, 2012 in the total amount of $2,246,088. I have read your report, Mr. Morrison.
So what were the amended ones, the ones with the stars?
Correct.
Okay.
A motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Miliani?
Yes.
Lori?
Abstain.
Torriello?
Yes. Okay, now, one second. Resolutions, which are in tab 2. Can I have a motion to adopt resolution 2012-77, which is a municipal tax lien redemption in the amount of $1,566.16 from block 2308, lot 65?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Miliani?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Torriello?
Yes. And can I have a motion to approve resolution 2012-78, which is a municipal tax lien redemption in the amount of $272.08 for block 2308, lot 58?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Miliani?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Torriello?
Yes. Now, we are on for a second reading for ordinance 2012-15, an ordinance prohibiting parking from a point beginning 75 feet from the southerly sideline of Raina Way, northerly for a distance of 225 feet, situated on the west side of North Main Street. Can I have a motion to open up for public hearing?
Make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone wishing to be heard on ordinance 2012-15, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address.
Gary Hill, 529 North Main Street. Is this on?
Doesn't
better?
sound, I could hear you, but it doesn't sound like it's on, but I can hear you.
Is
Oh,
it,
well,
is the
maybe that
lights
might-
on underneath?
Yeah, it says on. Okay. Again, Gary Hill, 529 North Main Street. As I spoke at the last meeting regarding this parking, I still believe that the 125 feet of no parking on the northerly side of Raina Way is excessive. I had the opportunity to speak with Mrs. Raina at the committee, or at the community day. And it was fun. It was interesting to hear that the initial complaint was actually the fact that her garbage can was being blocked, and she was just looking for that small section of 25 feet of yellow striping that had faded off to be repainted. And now all of a sudden we've turned this into this really long area of no parking that's going to be a big inconvenience. This weekend they had an auction there, and the officers put signs out that was basically just going about 45 feet in either direction, and I believe that proved to be sufficient as that was. Again, the fact of going 125 feet is really crazy. And then we're also going to have to take that same role, using your words, Mr. Mayor, before, is that we have to think about the township in a whole. We're also going to have to do the other end of that alley when it comes out down by the church. So we're gonna have to do the same thing there to make it fair to everybody. Because you have the same parking problem there as well. So if we're gonna go 125 feet to the north of that end, we're gonna have to go 125 feet north on the other end of that. If we're gonna be fair, we're gonna have to be fair to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard on ordinance 2012-15? Seeing no hands, can I have a motion to close public comment period?
I'll make a motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Before, I guess, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2012-15, does anyone wish to comment on this?
I guess I'm just wondering if we should revisit this as a result of, we have 2 residents who approached us saying that the issue that we're trying to solve really isn't the issue that was raised. And I know, Mike, we've heard from you more from an engineering and safety perspective, but to me it sounds like someone raised the concern and now it's become something more than what it needs to be. So I'm wondering if we should be rethinking this.
Well, my thought on it is that, I guess regardless of who raised the particular issue or how it came to our attention, once it came to our attention, we had our professional go out and assess the situation. He made the recommendation. It's not that any particular individual had requested that we act on 175 feet or 225 feet. These were the parameters that were established by our engineer. The issues were raised last month about whether it was excessive or not. We tabled it and we carried it for another month to allow Mr. Finelli to take a second look at it. And I don't want to speak for you, Michael, I'll let you speak, but my understanding is that you went out, you made a second assessment. I think you sent an email I don't know if you sent the email or not, I just remember
I did.
saying that your recommendations to this committee are in essence unaltered based upon you revisiting the issue.
Yeah, I guess, let me explain why we're in the same place we are tonight that we were last month, and why nothing has changed. Mr. Hill voiced some concerns last month, legitimate comments that evolved to the point, I think it based upon my recommendation, to table the ordinance to let us look at it again. We went back, of course, to the office. I'll tell you, I did a number of things. One is, I looked at it again based upon sight distance at an intersection. And that is the primary parameter to create a safe intersection. I came up with the same recommendation. I gave it to another engineer in our office, and I said nothing. I tried to let them decide on their own what they thought without any preconceived opinions or planting of any seeds one way or the other. They came back with, in essence, the same recommendation, based again, not primarily, based upon stopping sight distance at an intersection. I called the county, but it's a county road, and I asked them. I asked Bart Johnson, the county engineer. I said, Bart, I said, this is the situation. What parameters should I use, and what recommendation might you have? He did not give me a recommendation, nor would he, because he said, we don't get involved in any way, shape, or form with parking restrictions. Even though it's a county road, it's our call. And I told him what we used, and he said, that's fine. And I told him what it came out to be, and he says, well, that would be more so than let's say a 50-foot strip or whatever, just to pick a number. Based upon those gyrations and exercises and additional analysis, I concluded that the recommendation should remain the same, and hence the email to the committee.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for taking another look at it and getting different, opinions on the matter. So I thank you, Michael.
Did anybody else wish to be heard on it?
Yeah, it's, Mike, and I heard what you said and everything with this, if it were to remain the same, though, would it be that bad if it remained the same? That much
What do you mean, the same as what?
as it is now?
Well, there's
So would it be that much
nothing
of a
there.
hazard, is it that much of a hazard that we have to extend it that far?
Okay. Well, to my knowledge, based upon ordinance, signage, physical features, there's no parking restriction. There might be some faded yellow paint, but there is no legitimate no parking restriction on that road. So if we're, based upon the fact that again, it comes from the initial comments that were made now a number of months ago about the big trucks that are parked on both sides of Raina Way along North Main Street. And if you're there, they definitely create a problem. I mean, there's just no getting around it. You have to stick your nose out into the road, or if you get lucky and they're not there, then you're clear. And so, if you're me, as much as I understand perfectly what Mr. Hill is saying, and I empathize with his position and the fact that this may be somewhat of an inconvenience now. But for me to establish limits, I've got to go to standards of good engineering design, which is the site distance analysis which I talked about. And if you do, and I've got the plan here, if you lay it out, that's what it comes out to be. It wasn't an arbitrary choice. That's just the way it works. Because clearly, looking to the right, if you're coming out of Raina Way, you're looking for a car coming from the, let's say, the more eastern lane. So that's why the site distance is less. If you're at Raina Way and looking to the left, obviously you're looking at the more western lane, western side of North Main Street, which requires the additional 125 feet or the additional length. So that's the best,
So there's no deviating from your numbers. That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
Sure, Elaine?
Well,
I'm sorry, Dan, was there anything else?
Just one other, in regards to what Gary was saying, now, do we have to now do this at the other alleyway? The one down the road, the one that comes in by the park, what is it, by the parking lot, by the church parking lot?
Yeah, two or
parking lot entrance.
No. The other alleyway that comes in, that goes into the park.
Well, we don't have to, no.
Because
nothing-
somebody's not complaining about it.
There's
That's the
nothing
problem.
that would necessarily obligate us to, but you all heard what Mr. Hill said, and fair point. I mean, this could escalate into quite a project.
Across the whole town.
Exactly, because clearly there's not restrictions at every driveway and or roadway intersection that are going to allow to meet this stopping site distance criteria that I applied here. I mean, we know that.
If you try to buy the municipal lot here with cars parked in front of the Legion and in front here, sometimes you have trouble seeing the pull out. When I go out in the morning on Washington Valley Road, out onto Greenwich Street, there's cars parked on both sides for the buses. So, I mean, I think you're right about, this is like a can of worms to open up across the whole township.
Yes. What I said last month, and this is just an editorial comment, is what's a shame here, if you want to call it that, is that these fellows with these trucks insist on parking on the road, which has caused this problem. Where, from what I understand, I don't even know where they live, what their house is. I understand they have garage space, and they opt not to park there.
So
That
this is a frequent problem.
From what I understand, I mean, and when you drive down North Main, you see the trucks. I mean, not every time, but they're there. And when those trucks are there, it is absolutely a problem. I mean, absolutely a problem.
Elaine, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have just one question, and it's for the attorney Kit. Because we brought this up and gone this far, if there should be a problem that occurs and we fail to acknowledge that this was recommended by our engineer, could we then be held liable in any way?
No. Under the Tort Claims Act,
Okay.
these are discretionary decisions that you make.
Tom, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Okay, can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2012-15, an ordinance prohibiting parking from a point beginning 75 feet from the southerly sideline of Rainaway, northerly from a distance of 225 feet, situated on the west side of North Main Street?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. Roll call, please.
Perez,
Yes.
Siegel,
No.
Miliani,
Yes.
Valori,
Yes.
Toriello.
Yes. Now, we're going to do a first reading of ordinance 2012-17. This is an ordinance mandating connection to the public water supply system and sealing of existing wells. Some of you may have known, I know there was an article in the paper, there should be a link on our web, there is a link on our webpage dealing with FAQs. There is a certain portion of Greenwich Township, commonly known as the Pace Setter development, that is part of it's the Powhatan,
OU2 study area.
of the Powhatan Valley.
Powhatan Valley Superfund.
Thank you, Superfund site. It is one of the sites that is designated for remediation. There is, the testing levels have been such that the water supply is affected and certain residents are affected. So the way to, the EPA has decided to remediate is to require mandatory hookups to public water supply and the capping of wells. Michael and I had a joint meeting with the Franklin Township Mayor and some members of the EPA where there was a preliminary discussion of the issues and the challenges and what's being done. And I know that there is a mailing going out to every resident in this O2 area. So it's for Greenwich and Franklin Township residents. If you reside in the affected area, you will receive a notice. There is going to be a meeting here in November. Do you have the exact date?
I think it's the 7th. Wednesday the 7th.
It is a Wednesday. It is a Wednesday. So
It's for our meeting. I think it's the 7th.
you think it's the 7th? Okay. But it will be on. It is on our website, so check it. But Wednesday the 7th, there will be a meeting here where there will be representatives from the EPA to answer any of your questions. The long and short of it is, what the ordinance does is, it makes it clear that, number one, there's really not an option for the Greenwich residents. You have to hook up. But most importantly, in discussions with the EPA, it will be done at no cost to the Greenwich resident. Now, traditionally, when public water is introduced to residential areas, the water supply is provided to the street only. And then the homeowner has to pay thousands of dollars to get the water from the street to their home. Not so in this instance. The EPA will be paying everything, including all of the remediation, putting the grass back and seeding and everything to the way it is, capping the wells, with the one proviso. You will be receiving notice from the EPA at some point to sign a consent form to allow for them access on the property. If a resident refuses to provide access, then what would happen would be, if you don't provide the authorization form to allow the EPA to do the remediation within this 90-day period, Subsequent to that, the township will be notified of which residents failed to comply, and then you will be forced to hook up anyway at your own personal cost. The EPA will not pay for it. So there is certainly an extreme financial incentive to be part of the remediation solution to ensure clean drinking water. So this ordinance 2012-17 deals with that, and it is Wednesday, November 7th. There's going to be 2 meetings, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here at the municipal building. And every affected resident will receive written notice of that meeting, and everyone is encouraged to come down. There are going to be fact sheets, FAQs, everything that you need, and any issues or concerns you have. That'll be the time to address it with the professionals. So with that, this is a first reading of ordinance 2012-17, an ordinance mandating a connection to the public water supply system and sealing of existing wells. Yeah? You don't do that for a first reading, do you?
First reading.
Yeah, this is a first reading.
This is first reading.
First reading. So, a motion to adopt?
Introduce.
To introduce?
So,
Any comment?
I just have one. In connection with this particular Superfund site, this has been going on since it was identified in 2003. And the way that the site was identified was the sale of a house. And so when we did the investigations, we recognized by testing every well in that particular area, and the state worked very closely with us, and they have been continuing to test all of the homes, with the homeowner's knowledge, just so that they could keep tabs on making sure that everything was okay for the existing homeowners. It is as though they've made a decision that they would prefer to expend these dollars now and fix this entire thing appropriately, as opposed to continuing to have to put the money in for the testing. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Perez,
yes.
Siegel,
Yes.
Emiliani.
Yes.
Kalari,
Yes.
Torriello.
Yes. I'm going to skip digital signage. We'll defer that to next month. Let's skip Cedar Alley until later on. Yeah, no, I think Michael wants to address it tonight, but I'd like to now move to the financials. And I know, Lorraine, I don't know why you were not on the agenda, but I know you wanted to address the Township Committee tonight as well. So I would defer to both of you. I don't know if it makes sense for you to go first, Lorraine, and then Bob, or vice versa, but however you'd like to do it.
First, I wanted to apologize for missing last month's meeting. I thought I had told everyone, but I was excited to go to a GFOA conference, but evidently I neglected to. I had an absolutely wonderful time. I got to meet the writer of the best practices worksheet. He went over like a lead balloon at that conference. He was not well received, but it was a very interesting conference all in all. No. I learned,
Holding too many feet to the fire, is that what it was?
Oh, yeah, people were really not happy to see him. I did learn all sorts of new things about, not necessarily new arbitrage laws, but laws that will now be enforced that hadn't been previously. That and all of the post-bond sale obligations that the finance officer is supposed to be doing that I haven't had any experience with. Now I will, so I'm going to have to teach myself how to use the Emma website so that I can upload all of our financials onto that, so that any bondholder or prospective bondholder for the future would have access to all that information. I spent about a half an hour today setting up an ordinance for the firehouse improvements that was passed back in August. This isn't something I'll normally report on, but I just wanted you guys to all be aware of what actually happens in the finance office to provide the funding when an ordinance is adopted. Once the estoppel period expires, it's 20 days after the passage. If it's not fully funded, if it's a capital ordinance and it's fully funded, there is no estoppel period. So in this case, there wasn't one. It was fully funded, but then I get to make all the journal entries to put the funding in place in our financial records so that everything in our financial system matches what the ordinance has. So today, I created a new general ledger account for general capital and a new budget account. I did the journal entries to transfer the fiscal, the on-paper funding from the capital fund balance to the newly created accounts, and made sure that now our budget module is still in agreement with our general ledger module. And it was, so each one takes about half an hour to set up. So it's kind of a time-consuming process, but anytime we pass a bond ordinance or a capital ordinance, that'll have to be done if the accounts weren't previously created. And our general capital fund doesn't have a lot of specific accounts. Everything's kind of grouped together. So from here into the future, anytime we do an ordinance, I'll be creating a new improvement authorization account, just short to IA. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read through the riveting budget report in your packets. I just wanted to make mention that we're a little close on some of our line items for the year to date. And we currently have funding available that in November we'll be able to transfer to make sure that we have absolutely no over expenditures or anything close. But to ensure that that funding is still available, I would request that we curtail all non-emergent spending from here through the end of the year, just to make sure that that funding stays available.
I think, Tom.
I can't hear.
You have
Okay.
to pull the microphone closer to
Yeah,
you.
something just cut out.
Let me,
I think the microphone is on.
we're gonna put the phone over by, Lorraine.
Is that better, Tom?
Tom, is that better?
Yeah, better.
Okay, it's better for me, but maybe Lorraine.
I think maybe it might be helpful if we have maybe a memo prepared from,
Okay, I can provide him a copy of the actual
to
report.
each department, reminding them that they should not be, first of all, they shouldn't be doing this anyway, but they should be making purchases and then submitting, purchase orders.
Absolutely.
And, which I know in certain departments, without singling anybody out, I still see that is happening from time to time, and that needs to stop immediately.
Absolutely.
And maybe the memo should say if they do it, then there's not going to be any signatures on those. I mean, we can't, we just can't have the process circumvented for that, so we can maintain controls. And then maybe we can put something in place, and it's just a suggestion, if it doesn't make sense, but, maybe from this point forward, we pick a dollar amount, anything over requires, we have to review it anyway, I guess. I mean, if they're.
Well, we don't review until after it's already.
Well, that's the problem. That's
But
the
she
problem.
has to
Yeah.
come up
Yeah,
with
but
a dollar number.
Your
Yeah.
administrator reviews every purchase requisition, so if Kim would put the kibosh on in the beginning, then.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be
And
done.
if we're going to the point now of we're curtailing all non-emergent spending, if I could have a motion from the committee enforcing this, then I will then not sign off on requisitions.
Yeah, I think
Per the
now.
action of the committee.
Yeah, I think that's the purpose why we should be, as you're looking at things month to month, to address it before there's a problem. So
Right.
being proactive and ahead of the curve, so that we can address it now while there are no problems makes sense. I would make that motion.
I'll second.
So who determines emergency items, like who makes that decision?
I do.
You do?
Roll call?
That's where the conversation first, whoever comes forward.
Excuse me?
That's where the conversation with the person, the department that comes forward.
Oh, right, I mean, if John Howe came in and said, I blew out 2 tires, I need to go get two new tires, well, of course, we have to do that.
Right.
If someone's saying, well, now I want to,
Purchase a new laptop.
purchase a new laptop, or, it's going to depend on, what it is.
Situation, right.
The situation.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not going to, if it's something they're out of and they need, it's something that is daily use, absolutely. If it's something that, I'm not going to curtail bullets or, anything like that. But, if everybody's going to get on, let's just use the police, 10 new gun holsters, that can wait. That's not, unless there's one that's broke,
Exactly.
So it's just, it's
It's
going to
a
depend on
common
the
sense
situation.
approach.
And that's how it's been ongoing this year, so.
Right. Roll call?
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Emiliani? Yes. Valari?
Yes.
Toriello?
Yes. I'm sorry, you want to
Oh, that's
continue?
okay, that's no problem. Also in there is a cash receipts report for all of the funds that have been reconciled so far year to date. It's pretty clear to see which funds I have gotten to and which funds I have not. There's a big blank space by current fund. I'm leaving the doozy for the last. I was just reviewing with the auditor tonight. I'd like to get the inner funds cleared up, so I'm working on the smaller funds first and working my way up to big items. That's somewhere in there. I don't-
Four.
Okay, and you guys are.
All the amounts that are in there are an indicator that the reconciliations, the bank reconciliations for those funds through that date have been done, that the revenues have all been posted, the budget modules have been approved, and the general ledgers are not only approved but also in balance. It's a pretty time-consuming task, especially since I'm doing so many months at a clip, but there is progress being made at least. Eventually, I will be caught up, and hopefully by the end of the year, everything will be in perfect balance. From the auditor's beginning balances, which I had to make a lot of general ledger journal entries to get to, and we'll end up the year with everything balanced and ready to go direct print to the financial statement. I did bring a sample tonight, I know this will be really exciting too, of how I set up my binders. These are my little Bibles. For each fund, I have a separate binder, except for this one, because I didn't have any more binders, and I can't afford to buy anymore, so I put general capital and utility capital in the same binder. If anyone wants to look through, just to see how they are set up, I'd be happy to pass it around. The bank reconciliations are first, the general ledger with all of the entries, including the backup and the actual chart of accounts, come next, and then there's the receipts with all the revenue postings, the receipts module, monthly report, and all the expenditures, which include the exact report that prints out when a check is cut. It lists all the check numbers so that there's no variation, but that's an agreement with the bank reconciliation, which shows the beginning check number and ending check number for each month, and then the budget module monthly report, which is also improved with the general ledger. So if anybody wants to look through this, I have one for each fund except for current fund, and they're just hanging out in my office every time anybody wants to see them. Sherry and I took a field trip today. It was an unauthorized field trip, so I'll be happy to take an hour vacation time if it's not approved, but a neighboring municipality had a tax sale today, and I thought it would be really beneficial for Sherry to see how it works. It was a 5-minute ride. For her to see how the actual tax sale works, the tax collector's role in it, and what the participants actually do. And it was absolutely great. She was able to take notes and see the actual transaction and formulation of the tax sale and witness the bidding process, and it was in a very controlled, calm environment. So we'll see how Greenwich's go. It's December 4th, I think. Our tax sale is set for December 4th, so she'll get that as an extra little bit of knowledge down. And I did email, excuse me, the best practices worksheet. I don't know if it's actually in the agenda or not, but I did pass out a copy. Okay, that Tammy actually passed out to everyone. These, I think this is the 3rd year for it. The state comptroller kind of put this in place, and it's a really good assessment of where you stand in the state's eyes for how they ultimately want your municipality to operate on a financial and administrative basis. In prior years, they had specifications that this report had to be read in its entirety at a public meeting for the governing body, but they didn't have that in this year's direction, so we're not going to have to do that. And for the record, the auditor is shaking his head. Yes, we do not have to do that. But you definitely want to review this, because there is a certification that the municipal clerk has to send down to the state saying that you did review it. And again, that certification has to go to the state, so I'll print that out and give that to Kim.
There was in prior years, this had to be read?
Yeah, this is the, last year it was specified that it had to be read in general. I think the first year it was in its entirety. It had to be read into the record. So I don't know how it was treated before. I never went back and read the minutes to see how it was, but this year it does not have to be, but you definitely still have to read through it. Out of the 50 questions, I was able to answer yes to 35. And I'm definitely not an expert on all of Greenwich's affairs, so there could be some that I missed that we are in compliance with. I did have 13 perspective, because I'm not aware of those 13 questions being fulfilled as of right now, but they're definitely on my list of things that I want to do. So I came up with a list that I shared with Kim of 22 things that we want to take care of within the next immediate future, and hopefully we'll be able to get them accomplished by the end of the year to put us in a good position.
What was I'm trying to think, I seem to remember we submitted this, Kim. Did we go through this checklist?
This has been done in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. I remember
I'm sure that it has, I'm sure that it hasn't been read into the record.
has not been read
No,
by record?
not as long as I've been elected officially.
This is only the third year for that actual.
But I remember
sheet.
going through this checklist.
And I think it was only the first year that the entire document had to be read.
Yeah.
Which
That'd
practically
be
no
fun.
one did.
No.
I've ever known.
Oh, I did. It took a really long time. It was 45 minutes to read the whole
I'm
thing.
sure they were thrilled.
Yeah, it was a good time.
So can we place this on the agenda then for November 8th for adoption? Is that okay?
Did you look through the things too?
Why don't we just go through some, I mean, are we
Because
gonna,
I'll
are we
look
gonna
at
wait
them.
till it? When is the deadline for this?
It had to be filed by September 28th. I
Oh,
did
sorry.
submit it on time, but at the next regular meeting of the governing body, after submission date, it's supposed to be certified as reviewed.
Okay, and if there's amendments, or
Um,
changes?
No, there's no amendments.
There's no
Once it's-
amendments
once
or
it's
changes.
submitted. So you're gonna authorize Lorraine and
Okay.
myself to submit this then? Or we have to-
It's submitted
She already
already.
submitted.
You already
Just,
did.
you're talking about certifying.
Kim?
Right, there's
Certified.
the separate certification that the municipal clerk does certifies that it was presented to the governing body at a public meeting and that it was reviewed. Not necessarily that you agreed with everything in the documents, but just that you did see it and you are aware of the contents.
Okay, that, I don't remember. Okay.
And that was all that I had.
Well, should we take a minute to review it now, or should we just put it on next month's agenda?
No, we should put it on next
I
month's
think so,
agenda.
too.
We have too much to go over.
Yeah.
I think, that's my opinion.
We'll have to do it next month, because everybody hasn't had a chance to review it, so
And
we
it
will
is
definitely.
important to review. That's
Yeah.
definitely something you want to do.
But we will definitely get to that. Thank you, Lorraine.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Morrison.
Oh, yeah, do you want to make a motion, the auditor made the suggestion, do you want to make a motion that it's received and that you'll take action?
We can
for
do that.
certification for the next meeting,
Sure.
just to show that it's.
Sure,
been
sure.
received. That's good.
Yeah, so, can I have a motion for the Township Committee, acknowledgement that it's in receipt of the best practices worksheet for year 2012, 2013?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in, roll call.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Emiliani?
Yes.
Valari?
Yes.
Toriello?
Yes. Should we, before we get to you, Bob, just hold on a second, I'm just looking, should we address that? I think so.
I was gonna say, why not?
Why don't you do that? We're gonna just take one item, because there was a note, there's a matter on the agenda, and I'm told that the individual is in the audience, so I'd like to address it now, while they're patiently waiting, so. Do you need, I don't know how, the issue, Michael, is it easy for you to
Well,
address this?
I
or-
would, this is what I recommend. Mr. Huff contacted me, was it 2 weeks ago? About?
Yeah.
Okay. And inquired about Cedar Alley, and the discussion led to some options that he could pursue as a resident along Cedar Alley. One of those options was to request a vacation of Cedar Alley. Some of Cedar Alley has previously been vacated. So the ball was put back into Mr. Huff's court, and he submitted the letter that Kim emailed out the other day, and the photos. I'm gonna pass this around. Here's
It's
it.
in their packet, tab 6.
It's in the tab 6.
Yeah.
All right, it's the letter, but Michael has a.
Yeah, I'm gonna just pass them down.
Michael
There's
likes
tax
his charts.
Oh, maps are,
Maps.
I can't, just without that. I
I'm
got,
actually starting to know how to read them.
I got a full size for myself. Okay. But at this point, I think it's best if we go to Mr. Huff to have him explain what his request, what prompted his request. And then I'll give you my recommendation on what I think our next step would be. But
Mr. Huff, could you come up to the podium, please? And then just give your full name and address for the record, please.
Darrell Huff, 415 North Main Street. My main concern is, I bought the house 18 years ago with the understanding that Cedar Alley had been vacated part of the way. My end of it, which passes behind 2 houses on Main Street, 2 houses on Prospect Street, and the other side of it is 1 house on Edison Avenue. My garage and the residents at 305 Prospect Street, garage faces the alley. Okay? Access to the garages, I'm all for it. He needs to get his garage, that's fine. Over the last, I'd say 5 to 7 years, things have changed to where that residence has put up a fence on the other side of the alley. The neighbor next door at 301 and 303 have put in a new septic systems with the sand mound goes approximately halfway across the alley. And the resident at 417 North Main Street has planted shrubbery and trees behind his garage. 6 or 8 months ago, the residents at 203 Edison Avenue fenced in their rear yard. Now there's about a probably 3-foot spot where you can drive a car from Edison Avenue around to the other garage. The pictures, the yellow garage sits behind 305 Prospect Street. That residence and 301 and 303 have been maintaining the alley as their lawn for, I don't know, how long does it take to grow grass on a road?
What's how much dirt you put down on top of the
Correct.
stone.
It's a public access, and right now it's completely blocked other than behind my house at 415 and part of 417. Mr. Beam owns 417. He has for years had a business. He does bring equipment in. He backs down the alley. 90% of the time when he backs down the alley and parks behind the truck is in front of my garage. Is it a problem? It's a problem for me, yes. I don't have a driveway. I had a friend of mine's car break down, pulled into what he thought was my driveway, but it was a town road. Someone called the police department that I was blocking the alley. That the only other person that needs access or has access to any of their properties is Mr. Bean at 417. He drives through, he's got a full driveway with space to turn around and park, whereas I have approximately 6 feet of property between my garage and the alley. When I park my cars, they're hanging in the alley. There is room to get by. For 18 years, I've given him that access. When they did the septic system, I gave the contractor the access. I didn't block it and didn't give him a hard time about it or anything. When the residents of 305 needed to get through at any time, it was always open. And now it's, things have changed where 2 residents don't need it, 1 resident wants to need it, and 1 resident would like to have it as a driveway. So I don't have to have the hassle of having police called that I'm parked on a town road. It hasn't been maintained by the town since I've lived there, and probably 10 years or however long it was from the other end of being vacated.
So it's completely up to the residents to shovel if they need to shovel.
Yes.
What happened? Split in half. But there's steps that go before you get to the fire.
Yeah, I was here probably 10 years ago with the same issue, and there was an issue between the town attorney and the attorney that I had hired, like what was known as lack of communication, and I just gave up and said, I'll deal with it. So, I know I talked to Mr. Finelli. Excuse
Has
me?
it gotten worse since then? Yes?
It hasn't gotten worse, but in the last probably 3 months, the police department has been called that it was blocked. Once was for a friend of mine working on his car. Between the phone call being made and the officer getting there, it was done and gone. So there was nothing there when he got there. Another one was, I parked, my son was working on his car, I parked behind his car, which was blocking the alley. Within an hour, it moved. And there was no issue. The issue is that he just wants to be able to drive straight out of his driveway and not back out onto Main Street by the railroad bridge. It's a safety, could be a safety issue. I agree. A few years ago, they tried to make that one way so you couldn't pull out there. I agree it is a safety, but there is room in his driveway to turn a car around to pull out onto Main Street. It's not a matter of him that he does not need access through Cedar Alley to access his property. I need access of Cedar Alley to enter my garage and my off-street parking. And in the wintertime, I have to block it because there's not enough room for the vehicles that are at my house. I did talk to Mr. Finelli 2 weeks ago. I know in the past when they vacated Cedar Alley, that it was vacated and split down the middle. Both residents were given 8 feet or however many what it is. And you can see kind of in the pictures there with the fence and the lawn. The residents at 305, I don't know if he'd have a problem with if it was vacated to the residents around Prospect and Main Street. It would be to my benefit to have the 16 feet so that I could be able to pull in the driveway and swing into the garage. With 8 feet of driveway, it's not all that easy to pull into a garage at only 6 feet. It's approximately 6 feet off the line.
Mr. Huff, first, I want to thank you for taking the time to reach out to us and let us know of this issue, because this is all news for me. I never was, and I don't know for
As it
anybody else,
was,
but
anybody who was on
right,
it.
right. So, I want to thank you for reaching out to us. I was just stating to Mr. Finelli, I think maybe the best way to proceed from here is to have Michael look into, visit the site, take a look, maybe have conversations with the affected residents on Cedar Alley.
Understood.
And then maybe put forth some recommendations or proposals how to address those concerns. Because, certainly, and I know you're not expecting a resolution tonight in terms of,
absolutely not.
but now that the issue has been brought to our attention, maybe we can have our expert, take a look at that and then make some recommendations for us to consider. And at some point, whenever we have a discussion, we can provide notice to the residents, that abut Cedar Alley, and then, they can come down and provide comment as well. I think that probably makes the most sense, to proceed. Right?
One of the other things that concerns me, Mike, is whether or not where the fences lie.
Well,
Are they on their property or are they on Cedar Alley?
I did check that fence out. There was a
There were
permit
several.
issued by the town and installed by a local home improvement warehouse contractor. It
And
is,
then-
it's, the property pin is at the corner post, in the picture, if you're looking up the alley, that corner, the property line post is right at the base of the post.
Mike, doesn't there have to be
no, not for
fence? Not
fence.
for fence?
Yeah.
Is it higher than a 4-foot fence?
In the rear. From the back corner of the
Well, it'd be
residence.
6 in the rear.
Around to the rear.
That's not what Dave told a friend of mine, but okay.
Dave?
6-foot fence in the rear of the property, whatever.
Totally
Okay.
put trees.
Okay. Well,
That's a different issue.
all right. Now, did I misunderstand something? I thought when we spoke that you wanted, your hope was that if consideration was given to this, that the alley would potentially be vacated. But that's- Okay, so I did get it
Yes.
right, okay. This is the way this works typically. Request is made like this for various reasons. As the mayor just indicated, typically the engineer, me, is authorized to go out, do an inspection, do an evaluation, speak with some of the affected property owners, look at some of these conditions, and issue a recommendation. Should that recommendation be to vacate, then there's a procedure, there's an ordinance, and everybody's noticed officially, and any affected property owner would be noticed, officially noticed, not just a letter advising them we're going to discuss it. So these tend to get a little interesting, especially the older alleys, because I have a question before, I'm glad I didn't forget. There's a septic. Somebody installed a septic system in the alley?
The sand mound of the septic system encroaches approximately 50% of the alley between, and it's been like that for about 5
Okay,
years.
we'll
That's-
deal with
and
that
that's-
situation. And
I mean, the
Yeah.
one picture doesn't show it real well. If you look at from just in front of the yellow garage, you'll see the white PVC pipe sticking out of the ground.
Oh, yeah.
That PVC pipe is part of the sand mound.
All right, that's
which
what the
is-
inspection
Which is
reports.
parallel with the corner of that garage. So they don't put them outside of the systems.
Well, no, that's no problem. All right,
That's another can of worms.
so these alleys, they get people, if they're not publicly used and maintained, they tend to overgrow, and people use them as parking areas, as lawn. The septic is a new concept, but okay, let's bypass that for the time being as well. A lot of times this ends up getting complicated because there are various uses and a lot of different residences affected. Some people want it vacated, some people don't. The fact we haven't maintained anything, Joe, you guys have not done anything out there in a long time,
Not in
right?
my 24 years.
That's a good answer. That's a
It's been
good
18
answer.
since I've been there.
Okay,
So
so,
why start now, right?
so theoretically, it's a candidate potentially for vacation, but there are issues that need to be looked at and resolved, and I need to be sure that the vacation in the South Alley doesn't compromise safe access, potential emergency access to any existing garages, things of that nature.
Okay, how much work were you a part of that work that was done when he was here maybe 8-10 years ago?
Might even have been longer.
It may
Yeah.
have been longer?
What? Well, I don't.
Yes.
I would have been here, but I don't remember.
I think I
Yeah.
recall it, and I think there's some existing work that's been done, because I knew it was before an attorney. And there was some discussion about it, so we're gonna
Well,
have to
but I
look.
think that wasn't that more of a, we'll call it a neighborly dispute issue
Yes.
at that time.
At that time,
Find
Yeah,
out
that
what the
was
resolution was.
different
Okay.
than
And
what
but
this
the
is.
vacation
Yeah.
and was kind of a resolution to that. But like I said, between the attorney that I hired and the town attorney, the communication was not there for too
Yeah.
long, and I just
No,
said,
I completely
forget
understand
it.
that. I just wanna make sure
But-
when he knows
I mean, in
everything.
the last 6 months
Before he
with
makes a
the
recommendation.
installation of the fence, the way it is now, it is completely blocked to what half of the reason of it being non-vacated years ago.
Mike, isn't there an issue if the alley is vacated and half cedes to the adjoining property owners, that the interior people no longer have a right
Oh, right.
to get to their property.
Correct. They, absolutely. That right is dissolved.
So-
Absolutely.
Is the plan, would the plan be to make sure that easements are granted or something?
Well, no. Well, that wouldn't be my plan, because that would complicate, convolute this beyond belief. That's one of the things that needs to be looked at, that
Everybody who drives on
access
the
does
street-
not get restricted by this vacation, which it very well may. And sometimes, I brought a full-size copy of the tax map, unlike the reduced copies I handed out.
My likes working with the large ones.
Well, it's a lot easier to see. If you look in the Heights, and that's the area, North Main and 57,
On the other side of the track.
on the other side of the tracks. There are a lot of alleys and a number of sections of alleys that have been vacated, and other sections of those same alleys that exist. Joe Bexey's he probably has a picture of this in his head right now. So it may be that maybe we just vacate a portion of the alley, not the whole thing. I mean, to be determined, hence the need for me to go out. I would certainly talk with the, DPW,
Part of that alley is
police.
vacated.
And fire, DPW.
Yeah, the emergency service.
Two birds with one stone.
Well, in his case, yes, he wears many hats, doesn't he?
Exactly. So.
Well, that's a good summary without beating this
Okay.
any further. Just
And
So-
in
certainly enough
regards
do
to
tonight.
the access of the interior properties, all 5, of the 5 properties involved, 4 of them have private driveways for access to their property.
Off of existing public roads.
Correct.
Edison, Prospect, or North
Prospect, and
Main.
Main.
Okay. Well, then that would have to be the case.
The
for us
property
to
in
consider
question,
this.
which is mine, the only access other than the lawn to my garage is off of Cedar Alley.
Okay, well, that answers some of the questions. So,
Thank you again. I think what we'll do is I'll ask for a motion now to authorize Mr. Cunelli to look into the matter and then prepare recommendations to the Township Committee for further action.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Darryl, I'll probably be giving you a buzz. It probably makes sense for me to actually meet with you first. Hey, you can take me a little walk. You can give me the tour.
And it's a short walk. It's not that far.
Can I have a motion